Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition. What do we got? Good. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, Grooming and Reviews 101, aka. Come on, man, you're late. That was terrible. That was very late, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. That was bad timing, sir. Very bad timing. Need to work on that next time. But it's good to be with you guys again on another edition of the Gray Area. Again, where we have talk about cultural issues, hobbies, interests. We talk about everything on this show. We talk about everything from death to toys on this show. So again, that just shows you right there. There is no structure. There is no format. We just ham it up from our different cultural perspectives. We explore differences between the cultures as well as find the gray area in between. So we just enjoy just having a conversation, and we'd like to be a model, how to have respectful and pleasant conversation in these spaces. So we appreciate you guys for joining us on this Sunday evening for yet another edition. As you can see scrolling on the bottom, see our cash apps. We certainly appreciate anything that you send us personally, but more importantly than that, we ask that you support the channel, support the BMD network that brings you content on various topics 7 days a week on these platforms. Some shows run twice in one day. So again, we built up a really solid platform, and we certainly shout out to BMU for just allowing us to have the space to have this conversation. Shout out to our main guy in the back, David, who also certainly supports us on the tech side and just make sure these things flow smoothly. Good to be with you guys tonight, and we already have Lady Naveau already checking with us in tonight. Thank you, Queen, for joining us for this night show. And tonight's show, this is our call-in show. So again, at some point, certainly David, he's going to drop the link in the chat, and you guys can come up on any topic that we've talked about before. So again, we know who the true listeners are, because you guys have been taking notes and you guys have been looking to get back to us on things. So certainly any past topics that you found insightful, any topics that you want to go over, any questions that you may have for us, certainly fire away, and no topic or no question is off limits, at least as far as I'm concerned. And we just try to keep it transparent here, and we just like to, be two human beings just having decent convo. So again, thank you for joining us tonight on the show. But my man, Yasso, how you doing, man? Yeah. Yeah. So it's good to be with you guys tonight. Cash Rain Mindset, again, thank you for dropping on through tonight. Antoine Lancelin, again, thank you. Also, hello from Korea. We got the Koreans coming in. Man, we would love to hear from you certainly tonight. Again, we're going to be dropping the link later in the chat. And so, we the Mrs. O Show, thank you for joining us tonight. Shalom. Certainly appreciate you showing by to show us love tonight. And they have a terrific show on those ladies on, I believe they come on Thursday nights, but they have a terrific show. I was on there chopping it up with them. And, so certainly, make sure you support them in their efforts and what they bring to it, talk about relationships and whatnot. And again, really nice tone and tenor for the show. So definitely support those ladies as they, look to, bring adult, we call it grown folk conversation. And so those ladies are doing a terrific job over there. And it was a pleasure to be on that night. So we are, again, it's open forum. So, we're gonna kick, just sort of kick it on some things. I mean, obviously, in the last few weeks on the BMU network, because of the political season that we're in, obviously things are getting charged up, things are getting heated. Again, they say things you don't talk about is what religion and politics. We've gone to certain places there. Some of those conversations get heated and whatnot. And this is obviously going to be a hotly contested election. So I don't know per se like delving in so deep in this. I know people have passions on things, but at the same time, we want to, certainly try to have respectful. But again, we recognize how passionate people are on certain things. And so, hey, you brought someone in new from Korea. Again, really appreciate you doing that. But one of the things that we like to have in the gray area is, again, we like having conversation with people from different cultural perspectives. So again, on all the shows that we've talked about, like I said, from toys to death to children to school, child rearing, marriage, We like to hear from how other cultures handle certain things. So again, the more diverse we are, here, the better it is, I think, for the content of the show. So again, you have an African American ADOS perspective here. So my roots here are from Southern Georgia in the USA. I go back nearly 400 years with my generation here. So, and then, grooming obviously being from Greek American. He's lived in Greece as well as in the U.S. We have my man Blake David in the back, who comes from a Nigerian, Igbo background, and Yoruba background. Oh man, don't come after me. I apologize for the mistake, my man David. You know how much I love you. Yes, I'm sorry. My man is straight up Yoruba. Ekene is the Igbo man. But I'm an Igbo man as well, so as much as they don't want to acknowledge me, but I'm claiming mine also.
I think you're lucky because Black David's probably sleeping in the background already.
Well, again, I apologize for the profile, but yes, a very proud Yoruba man. As we can see here, you can see how proud and how he wears that with pride. So salute, shout out to the Yoruba community here in these streets as well. So again, there's been a lot of hotly contested, political, back and forth, certainly in these spaces. And one of the things that came up was guns. And, Peter suggested that we have a conversation on guns. And, certainly would like to start out with just from a cultural perspective. Again, what are the laws, especially for Greece? What are the laws regarding gun ownership? How do you get a gun? How easy it is to get access to them? Are there, checks or whatever? So I may want to start with, you can.
I have a question for you really fast.
Sure thing.
We kind of went up. I don't say back and forth, but we had a little different views on the barbershop on Friday. My question was go to, and I had to step away. Is have you ever shot or held a real actual firearm?
Held a real firearm, yes. Shot one, no.
Okay.
No. And quite frankly, never really had a desire to. In fact, I have friends of mine who are police officers, and they offer for me to go to the gun ranges with them all the time. And there's just something about it that I don't know if there's call it a gun phobia per se, but I've just never had any desire to wield a weapon. When I was a kid, obviously you played with cap guns and toy guns and things of that nature. You played cops and robbers. You did all that stuff. You had water guns. You had all those sort of things. But it's the real thing. So again, I was with a cop friend of mine maybe about 3 months ago, and we were in his basement. He was just kind of going through his collection and whatnot. So he put it in. How do you disassemble? How do you take it apart? And he was. What's that?
It's called field stripping. When you break your gun down, it's
correct.
Field stripping.
Correct. So he was showing me all those things, and it just didn't feel comfortable to me. So that's so, and I admit that bias when sort of talking about the subject. So I admit that I'm not saying what other people should do when it comes to that. I do think there's some sensible things as a nation we could do, but so a lot of these folks are certainly pro Second Amendment, and they cling on to that to the death. And so I realized the difficulties sometimes with having that conversation with people, but I just like to and like I said, I'm not saying go gather up all your guns and take the guns away from law-abiding citizens. I'm not on that vibe either. But I ask questions about the gun culture in this country, and in particular in the South. And the times I've been to the South, it's almost like you go through a literal Mason-Dixon line sometimes in terms of the cultural values. And so it's definitely something that, I experienced some of it as a kid as far as, look, my grandfather, when I lived in Georgia for a while, he would go out, like I said, he literally hunted for dinner. So he would go out with his shotgun. You hear boom, boom. He came back with squirrels and birds and all kinds of wild game meats that my grandmother would then strip down on the back porch, and they would make, their meals out of it. So I'm familiar with guns really up to that level, rifles and shotguns. But in recent years, I've seen folks who got straight up armories. And I ask myself the question sometimes, well, what is all this for, really? And so that's something that I'm always a little bit curious of, is in terms of this, what's is there something else going on besides just one being a collector? Because again, when we talked about the toy show, we talked about collecting, and I know there's people who like to collect guns, just as a hobby, just like you collect stamps or whatever. I get that also, and but you have people with straight up armories, and I'm always asking, what is behind that, and so just in my observation, there's some things that are a little unsettling about the gun culture in this country that leaves me a little bit leery when it comes to the use. So that's kind of my background when it comes to it. But again, I'm not trying to shame people nor tell people what to do. But I just have a perspective, and I'm also looking for solutions because every time you hear about mass deletions and all these things that are just happening in society and why these things are happening on a somewhat regular basis to the point you almost get numb to it. I have questions and asking, is there something else that we can do something with that? So, but that being said, yeah. So any other questions just to lead off, or do you want to start
Right
with
now, I'm gonna as we get into it, I think it'll come to me. I have a couple, but I want to see your head first before I jump to the gun. You know what I'm saying?
Sure thing, not a problem at all, not a problem at all.
So, all right. This, so you want to know how how it is in Greece
So
with
so
fire?
just by country. In fact, David, if you're in the back, or if I can, let me see if I can present this. I just had a thank you. So again, so if you look at this is by country, rates of homicide per 100,000. Again, this comes from I can't see because of the slide here, but again, I got this off from an online source. So clearly, in terms of gun homicides, firearm homicides in America, kind of dwarfs kind of everywhere else. Greece is relatively low on the
That's correct.
scale when it comes to guns. So I'd like to maybe explore a little bit of why do you think that is, and if you just wanted to explain a little bit about gun culture in Greece, as well as the steps that people go through to acquire firearms. But again, if you look in Europe, again, very low rates of gun violence. If you look at Taiwan, again, very low. In Japan, has virtually none. Again, I'm not sure with all the worlds. Again, Republic of Korea is also very low since we had a person here from Korea, and I'm not sure if Republic of Korea. I don't know if that means North Korea or South Korea. My apologies if I don't. Yeah. So among World Bank high income countries. So again, we're not even talking about war torn. We're not talking about third world. We're talking about advanced nations. So, which seems to be almost counterintuitive in that you would think the more advanced the nation is, it would almost be like there shouldn't be a need for such a high rate of homicides. But compared to advanced nations, again, we stand out. I could certainly see in the third world or where there's extreme poverty, where you may have a higher incidence of that. But it's we dwarf everybody. So I'd be curious then, from your perspective, how gun laws work in Greece, and just from your time being there, what's the gun culture like? Does everybody have a gun? Is everybody into collecting a ton of guns or whatever? So you can just kind of speak on that, just based on your
So
knowledge of that. You can close this for now, and I may want to come back to it on the next slide, but you can close this for now, Dave, if you're in the back. Go ahead, grooming.
So obviously here we have all these gun clubs. There's our Second Amendment right, all this stuff. That is a American right. I want that get that clear in everybody's head. If you go to a lot of other countries, I can't speak for every country. I can speak at least for Greece. That is not a right you have. Get that through your heads. So that's
Mm,
my right. That right can be taken away just like that, very
mm,
easily. And
mm,
like even these under the constitution, they can find a reason to take that away. So get that. Let's get that out in the open right now. You might
mm,
disagree, you might have pushback, but that right can be taken away very easily. So, in Greece, it's called the I remember the name of it now. It says had it up here. The Crazy Republic Firearm Right. So how it works is you have to be a citizen of the union of the not union. I'm sorry. So United States almost of Greece or a citizen of the UN. So to own a gun because you might be, you might move to Greece or whatever the case is.
Right.
So for that reason, you have to be second thing. How popular is it? Greece gun stuff like people talk about. Yeah, some people bullshit about it. I'm not gonna deny it, but it's no way. Okay, America is 100 out of 1%. We're more like a 5% increase. People talk about it, but not that common. So more people who talk about are hunters who are living in the countryside that do hunt on a daily basis, but not to the point that you're talking about like you have a range every place you go. Like at least in PA, I know there are gun ranges. I have like 4 or 5 ranges in 2 or 3 towns in me. Like under 20 minutes, I can get to any gun range. That's how simple. I literally have a gun shop, literally walking distance from my house. You're not gonna find that in Greece. No way. So there's a couple of things to do in Greece that I think is very smart. One, they teach you firearms in the military because you have to be drafted. There's no
right.
So safety is number one. They had this. I'm not sure if they still have it. They had a course for kids. I believe it was ninth grade. I'm not mistaken. You had to go through your firearm class. You need to know how to discharge everything with that firearm. It's a small 22, but it's still a firearm. It's not going to be like a 9 or a 40 or 45.
So is that a revolver or is that like an automatic, a semi-automatic?
22?
Yeah.
22 is the size of the bullet. 22 is a square gun. It's literally like the size of my pinky. That's how small it is. Like not this size, like the nail of it. That's how small the arm around. It's a square gun. It has no kickback.
But I'm saying the gun, is it a revolver? Is it like do you load the bullets one by one, or do you put a cartridge in? Okay.
You learn on a semi, a revolver, and a rifle because you don't know what you're gonna have in your hands. So you need to learn everything.
And what kind of rifle is that typically? Like an M16 or similar type of?
That's a long rifle. That's what it is. Nothing crazy.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so like single shot.
Gotcha. It's one of those old school.
Like almost like the musket, but a little more advanced than the musket. But I get you. But
like an M1. If I had to say a model M1, I don't even remember what it was because I never took the course. I learned about it, but I never actually took the course because I was in States at the time when I had to take it. So you do that, then if you after your service, you say you just became an average Joe. Let's say a cook, like in my case, right? And I like to get my firearm. I really enjoy shooting. I like going to range. I like hunting. You have to go through a therapy. You have to go through a therapist, and they will decide if you're fit to have a firearm or not. Once they approve of that, then you take it down to the police station. The police station will make their decision if you fit. They can deny you for any reasons, and you cannot fight that back. If you can fight in court if you want, that's your right, obviously. But most likely you're going to lose that fight because there's no law in anywhere in Greek saying you have the right to own a gun. Nowhere.
Right.
I
would definitely say that's something perhaps unique about the United States is that Second Amendment. I don't know how many other nations have as a part of their founding a right to bear arms. So I certainly think that, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that is certainly something unique about the United States is that it's put up there right behind the freedom of speech.
From my understanding, because I went to school with a lot of people overseas, obviously going to New York, meeting people. Weird. I think we're like, I don't want to say the only one, but one of the few.
One of the few. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know any other country that says you can bear arms. You have that, right?
Right.
I think we're the only one that I know of. Now, saying all that laws, there are people that do illegal shit. Let's be straight up. People do own the guns illegally. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, but people can do it. I will put this statement out, and I will back my statement any day of the week. I do not believe gun laws work.
Okay.
Reason I say that. Tell me, how can you stop somebody buying a firearm on a black market?
I think you can go after the illegal distribution. You can go over the trafficking. I think just like there's drug trafficking, there's I think there's also illegal gun trafficking. I don't know how much we put behind that, in terms of enforcement. I know we got a DEA and all these, other entities. And I don't know what the current effort is in doing that. Even if you're transporting weapons from one state to another, there doesn't seem to be a lot of pushback on that. On that. Is there a desire to do so, especially in areas where gun ownership is considered again a right? So to even say that something like drugs, you could say that's illegal to do. But I think because gun ownership seems to be so fundamental to many Americans in terms of a right, I don't know if they treat it like with kid gloves or not. I hear a lot more passion about, fentanyl trading in this country, or, we need to stop the fentanyl supply. But do they put the same amount of onus in trying to stop illegal gun transport or trading? That I don't, I just don't see, from my perspective, I don't see a lot of the same emphasis on that as you do with fentanyls or drugs or what have you. I don't see people, getting gone after. I mean, back in the day, black men were being locked up for having an ounce of weed for 10 years for an ounce of weed. But someone doing an illegal gun sale, I've never seen a person get that kind of punishment for that. So you can an illegal gun that can literally delete someone versus someone having an ounce of so in this country, it seems like we tend to prioritize what we want to prioritize, and so why that's not there, that's a question that I have.
I know somebody who did 18 months in federal prison for having a firearm with no rounds, and it was illegal. Black market. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they do time. Trust me, you don't hear about it, but they do it. So
I wish they would advertise it more. But like I said, I sell them here. I know the history when it comes to drugs in law enforcement. Again, especially when it comes to black men. That was an actual process to do that. The war on drugs, certainly that started in the '60s. Certainly with the Nixon administration. I know a lot of things that were done to incarcerate black men over non-violent drug offenses. Yeah.
My pushback is on that. My pushback is I don't believe gun laws work because, okay, you might have somebody who says, he cannot own a firearm for X, Y, or Z reason. I'll give you something even better, actually. Ex-coworker of mine, when we worked together at the hospital, he was a convicted felon. He got caught 4 times, not once, but twice, but 4 times, selling very, what was it? Heroin. All right. And he's still allowed to own guns and carry. That blows my mind. Then you have somebody else who, he was 21 and he got in a little scruffle and he cannot own. That makes why would you let an ex-drug dealer allow to own, but the other guy, it makes no sense. That's why I say gun laws don't work. Another reason why I say gun laws don't work, like you said, black market. Okay, yeah, you might enforce it more and more and more, right? More you enforce it, more they're gonna find a way to bring bigger men. We all know that. Every time we think you catch somebody, as another one's taking their place. So let me give you a statistic for a second here. When the bad thing is gonna happen, cops are not there usually. You gotta protect yourself before they, anything.
Not even talking about that, bro. I got you, but we have no argument. Like I said, I am not out opposed to gun ownership. I think what you talked about, the Greece system, I think is terrific. I would love to see something like that here.
So,
but now
to that answer is a couple things that need to change. Number one, obviously we gotta get rid of minimum right because they can deny you for any reason in Greece. Here, they cannot deny you for no reason. There has to be a legit reason. You know what I'm saying? So, second thing that I will say, the draft has to come back because a lot of people who own guns in Greece are already did their service in Greece, not volunteered because they had to.
Right.
And that's not going to happen either.
What age is that?
Anytime after high school or after college. If you do not choose to go to high school or college, you have to go right after high school. So it could be from 18 and over.
My only issue with that, again, I first of all, I think bringing the draft back, I think would be terrific, especially for young men. We hear all these stats on Gen Zers and the sense of depression that's going on with these young men and whatnot. I think them being in a structured discipline program like the military I think would be a terrific option, and I would love to see that certainly implemented. The only problem I would have with the system is that again, a lot of the gun violence is taking place for people who are younger than the ages that you're talking about. So if you got a 12, what difference if you, even if you had the draft or whatnot, if a 12-year-old gets access to a gun or a 14-year-old gets access to a
You have a
gun?
good point there. That's where
That's
I raise my hand and say, "You got me there."
right, right. We
Got
have
me.
someone who joined us in the back. I just wanted to like Amira, I believe, is in the back. Hello, is there someone there? I
Hey,
thought.
this is
Hi,
18.
hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are
Yeah,
you?
we're doing great. We're doing great here. Thank you for joining us tonight on the show.
No problem. Thank you
Uh,
guys for having a show.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, like I said, we just chop it up here as the subject, but you can talk about anything that you want. Again, we do shows on a variety of topics. So if it's something that we talked about in the past that you want to bring up, or if you want to chime in on this topic, anything you got for us, the floor is yours. If you have a comment that you want to add to the discussion.
I'm listening.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Keep on listening, and
Okay.
but if you find a need, you want to butt in, you just butt in and give your comment. But really appreciate the support and all the ladies. We got all the take heeds in the house tonight. We got again A-Team. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. All the queens, Lady and Bo, as I talked about before, all the queens are in the building tonight. So we just appreciate you ladies supporting us. Where the man at? All right, so again, the ladies are giving us love tonight. So again, hopefully the some of the guys will join us tonight as well. Again, take heed. Again, thank you so much for stopping on through tonight. But that's the thing that gets me. I like the structure that Greece offers, but if these again black market, because again, 12-year-old's not just going to go into a store and get one. So again,
So, from my understanding, from a couple of my buddies who are ex-sheriffs or current sheriffs or police force, COs, whatever, right? So most of the crimes that who these young kids are doing, they're actually taking their gun, their father's firearm. So my question is, and again, I'm a big believe about gun set. It saves locks and all that key, not
mhm,
the key. So
mhm.
how the hell and how the fuck do these kids have access to your father's firearm? Are you that damn stupid?
Some are. Some sleep. Some sleep with the gun under their bed. I know.
Hypothetical question.
I got you. But some of these guys, they got the guns under their bed, just like their money. I mean, so it's not like some of these folks are on the spot. But I like the idea of again promoting responsible gun ownership. So maybe you need to do it early. Maybe you need to do it when they're in junior high. When they're 12 years old, maybe you need to start having some sort of training or going over firearms training. Maybe it needs to be younger. But waiting to draft age, again, a lot of these,
Ninth grade
homicides that
is
yeah.
when you first time you actually in school, at least the first time you actually held a real firearm. And
Mhm,
they're not only one teacher, there are a couple of instructors. They go
mhm,
around from school to school to school. It's like a 2 or 3 weeks course. It's nothing too serious. I can
mhm.
refer that it's serious, but it's not like a long course. You're gonna, you take the 3 week work. You take a written test afterwards. It's a physical test. How to you at the range. You go. How you hold it. How to
Yeah,
clear clip. If you have a jam or a hang fire, all of that stuff. They teach you every little step of it. So at least if you ever be in a situation, oh, it's a gun on the ground. Oh, it's a toy. No, it could be a
right,
real firearm.
right.
Toys look like real firearms too, actually,
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
If
there
you
was
hit
a
them real,
time where they were making them so real, like the Glocks were looking so authentic that
the
you
BB
couldn't
guns,
tell you couldn't tell the difference really between a real obviously the weight of it or whatever. I'm saying just about looking at it and just look at what happens where again if you're playing cops and robbers or shoot them up with the kids outside or whatever, you encounter someone in law enforcement, they have a split-second decision to make in terms of is this a real or is it
So
not?
if you remember back in the 90s, when the BB guns were getting really popping up,
Yeah,
and some of the Glock BB guns feel the same weight as a Glock, a fully loaded Glock, because of the
yeah,
air and the BBs, obviously.
right,
It has the red tip that's only different, but people were stupid enough to start painting that black.
right.
And I have seen both of them hand side by side, like literally like this. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. But even
Yeah,
the
and the
Glocks
only way I
themselves,
could tell,
they're not metal. They're not some of these guns. Because even when my friend was showing me that they're like it's like a resin almost. It's not
like
even like a metal. Yeah.
almost like a pipe.
So
They're
right. So the gun
made
is
to
so the
be
gun seems to be
longer.
lighter, right?
Yeah. Yep. So if I take the slide off, and I'm cleaning my gun. That is literally I can bounce it like this, up and down. That's how light it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can float in water. Like
Right.
maybe not like extreme, but you get it. I mean, man, where's Trey when I need him? For once, I actually want him on a show, and he's not here.
Right.
but
Right.
seriously, that is one of those few firearms that are very light. They're very, and they're like in 1911. 1911 is pure metal.
Yeah.
And one thing I do like about the 1911s versus the Glocks really doesn't have a safety, and there's no real such thing as a safety in a gun. It's the
Right.
safety is your finger. You're not going to
Yeah.
pull it. Don't put your finger on it. But one thing
Exactly.
that does have in the back of the grip is a pressure plate.
Mhm.
So I have never owned a 1911. I had a Glock. So if a child has not have enough grip to squeeze that safety, the pistol grip. Again,
Right,
I don't
right.
know. I don't know for facts. This is what I have read. So don't take that with a grain of salt. What I'm saying now. So besides saying that, is it? I feel the grip behind the gun, the safety plate. I think that is a good additive for an extra step. Like a child grabs it, he's not going to have the full strength to pull that plate. If that's actually my information is accurate.
Right.
So
What do you think of this new technology now where they have the guns that are like, finger printed or whatever, like, you can only shoot it if you're the owner or the register. You can't fire the gun unless your fingerprint matches that. You think that's something that could take off? Or
I don't think it's going to be accurate at all because it's too experimental. So on computer scenario, ours, right? It's on a scenario. You're camping with your whole family, you and your 3 girls, your wife, and all of a sudden something happens. And guess what? The only defensive from them versus the worst case scenario between that person is putting one in them. All of a sudden go, trying to fix it, rub it in. You're trying everything at this point. Nothing's activating the gun.
Well, you have to make the assumption also that they know how to shoot it.
I'm assuming you know how to shoot it. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming
you're you got it. Yeah. That would have to be, I would definitely say this. If you are a gun owner, I think everybody in your household needs to know how to operate it. I mean, that's like, it's like you guys going to church or you guys going to wherever. It's like we're going to the gun range, or you're going to get some professional instruction in terms of how to do that. I think everybody needs to understand.
I'm going to cut you off for a second, Paul.
Yeah.
And this is what bothers me here. So I already explained how the gun laws break and grace, and you're a fan of them, like you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a born, raised, red-blooded American, that again, I know you're not a big fan of Second Amendment, right? But let's say you are.
I didn't say that.
Okay, let me
I didn't say that.
You're not a fan of guns, but you agree with it, correct?
Generally, certainly as it's stated and as it's written, yes, I'm not anti-Second Amendment. And I certainly think they are needed, certainly by, again, police and military and all those sort of things, and even for the common private citizen. But can we have some sort of safety, some sort of background, some sort of thing, some sort of training before we allow anybody to get one?
Here, where I'm going to go with this, and I think you're going to agree with me. Why do not we have steps? Like, okay, at 9th grade, you're going to take a 3-week course how to fire 3 different kind of firearms: a revolver, a semi, and a long rifle. I'll throw a 4. I'll give you a shotgun too. All right. So all 4 platforms. Okay, you should at least know how to be able to handle every single one in every different way. Why don't we have as red blood?
Well, I think part of it two things. One, it used to be part of, again, family culture. Because again, especially if you're in the South, like I remember this, like as you could be 8, 7, 8, 9 years old, you knew how to fire a rifle because again, your dad taught you, or your uncle taught you, or your big brother taught you in terms of how to do it. So again, there was a cultural aspect to gun ownership that was passed on because again, and it wasn't just for self-defense. You needed that to survive on because again, you basically hunted for your meals.
Okay.
So you had that aspect of it. Then, to your earlier point, you also had a draft. And if you look at, I mean, we've all seen those videos of the training, right? The gym classes. If you ever watched any of those 1960s gym class videos and whatnot, they weren't playing stickball and basketball and all that kind of stuff. They were doing military style drills because the idea was is that you were probably going to go into the military at 18 years old or some guys even younger. So again, so you would get training there also. So I think there was a seriousness that was given to either culturally in your home or how the country's approach was that, hey, if you're 18, you're probably gonna be in some dress, especially like in the day when you had between like World War One and World War Two and Korea after that and Vietnam after that. So you had like a 40+ year period where it was almost like expected that at least half of the men in the nation were going to be drafted or something like that. And so I think those things you didn't necessarily need to have that, but I think in today's world where things are, I'm open to it. I think we should have something that gives young people a healthy respect and knowledge for guns, and while at the same time talk about the lethal nature of them, when to use, why to use, and but there's a lot of reasons there, but I definitely I agree that I think there should be some. Now again, yeah, dirty folks, shout out to you. Thank you for joining us. He says straight up, I don't trust women with guns. With that said, all useful skills are taught by men. Women should use a 2A. Not sure what that is to enforce. Well, I don't know what that. I don't know what that means. 2A to enforce free. Okay, I'm not sure where we're going with that one, but
yeah, I'm sure what he's trying to say. I don't know what a 2A is either, to be honest.
Yeah.
With you.
Now you said in Greece, women also get the training as well.
Yes, not as much training as a male does because they don't go to the draft. It's pretty simple as that. So they get more draft. They get men get a little more training because most times men go hunting and women don't really fuck with the gun as much. They more care about cooking and doing laundry, hanging out with the girls, going getting coffee, smoking their cigarettes, women stuff. So you don't really have a tomboy figure in Greece. That word doesn't exist. Right. So girls don't really fuck with it too much, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I got
think
you.
We have in the back chat with us on audio.
Hi, who's with us? You on the back? If you're there, you can unmute yourself. Dirty folks. Hello.
What's going on? What's going on, bro?
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
I am good, bro. Real good. Real good. Thanks for asking.
I just pulled up. I'm not even going to quantify what I said, but I meant what I said. I wanted to address something that you said, and I want to kind of clarify.
Okay.
Gun culture is American culture. However, it's not about the classes, courses. I think you should go to the range. Like my granddad taught me how to shoot when I was 11.
Right.
Where
are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
Chicago.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, but these boys can't shoot because they ain't got daddies. But my grandfather taught me how to shoot.
Right.
When I was 11 years old. He was the president of his gun club, and he was a Cook County sheriff. And we used to go ski shooting. Right.
Yeah.
Scope on the 22. Got my first black eye with the kickback from a 22 rifle. Right?
Oh man.
So it's not training is essential. However, what's more important about gun safety is something that men give children, which is conflict resolution.
Yeah.
So you knowing how to shoot and you don't have conflict resolution, you just better at shooting at people when you're emotional.
Great point.
I truly think that gun safety is I don't want to call it a masculine trait, but I do think that men are protectors by nature. But I believe it should come with that. It should come with conflict resolution skills, negotiation skills. Like lethal force should be the last resort.
Right.
And normally it is when you're in a functional society and community. Normally it is.
Mhm.
I think the fear of 2A is the same fear of over legislation, right? Like
Mhm.
people know they need to be stopped, but they won't listen to anybody unless it's enforced by guns.
Mhm.
So they want more laws when America is better with less laws, but more personal responsibility.
Mhm.
But as people get away from personal responsibility and personal accountability and nuclear families and things of that nature, now they need the government to step in and be the protector because they
Mhm.
don't want the protector in the home. But generally
Right.
speaking, fathers, well, boomers, maybe not, but that's what my grandfather said of my father. Anyway,
Right. Yeah.
they teach that personal accountability, that honor, that protect your family, your children, your last name. Don't disrespect. Don't tarnish what it is that you built. Keep it legitimate. Keep a plausible deniability to it. I don't know if that's
Mhm.
the right phrase for this particular thing, but like
Right.
if
I
somebody come
I
in
know
your
you're going
house,
with it. Yeah.
if you I'll shoot you in my house, but if you
Mhm.
run, I won't shoot you in the back. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. For
A
sure.
code of ethics. Those things come with the gun, and
Yeah.
those have to be taught before you touch the gun. But if you have those, a gun is no different than a hammer or you know or anything any other tool.
Agreed. I,
In a way,
we got.
also, you can take a life with anything in your hands. Like you can stab someone in a car artery, and then you can just deceased right there in front of you, or a plate, or whatever. So, or most Spanish and Italian women and Greek will use the goddamn sandal as a lethal weapon. So, we have other, firearms. I
Not
know you.
embrace, not embrace. Who's Italian and
You
Dominican.
just took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was referring to. She has a
What is
lethal
this?
weapon. Like, listen, I love you, Grace, but damn, girl, like when it comes to these badoflis and ciclates, hang on.
Embrace says, "I loved guns and the smell of gunpowder." Wow.
This is a lethal weapon in a Italian, Dominican, and Greek woman.
Not for Embrace. Embrace is like,
You
give me
want
the
to bet money
gun.
on this? I like
Grace
her
is
to come up
like,
and say not. I
Grace
did.
ain't
I
playing.
told her. She was a yep.
Oh my gosh. But Dirty, I certainly respect your views there, and I agree. And I agree. I don't think I have a pushback for anything that you've said.
No, I agree
But
too.
yeah,
I agree 100%. Like, listen, it's the train. Like, my father didn't teach me who to actually use a firearm because he had no idea. He was a fisherman most of his life.
so
But
how
the
was it?
person,
So, but he went to the military and all that, right? He
well,
learned.
he
He
actually moved out of Greece before he was drafted. He was working on
oh
it like a deckhand or something at a very young age. The person who
oh
taught
okay,
who was one of my best friends who was an army ranger, and
right.
when I learned from a sniper, the best person you can learn from, I thought, and he was like I was 25 when I actually no, I'm sorry, 22 when I learned to fire my first firearm,
For some,
and
gotcha.
I was wondering, I just didn't know where to start. So I asked him one day, and I went Wolfie, because we all called my call sign. Wolfie was his call sign. I said, well, Wolfie, like why, I'm thinking about learn how to shoot my firearm. He goes, okay, I'll be up there tomorrow. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. He had 5 different firearms. I gravitated to to the Glock. That's one I felt comfortable that day with, and downrange. And
Yeah,
again, I'll use Grace and some other women, like including my girlfriend. I know a lot of women who can shoot, and they shoot better than men. Some of them too.
yeah,
They're
for
they're,
sure.
they're groups, and it's like tight, and that's what you want. But again, safety's first.
Gotcha,
Let's
gotcha.
get out.
Yeah, Dirty. Did you have any other? If you
Yeah,
still with us, any other comments before you jump off?
one last thing that what he said
Sure
about
thing.
the shoe, which I thought was hilarious. You know, when we were kids, when we thought about lethal weapons, we were thinking about arrows and ninja stars.
Absolutely, Shurkins, baby.
Oh, one
So
of these.
that's crazy. But yeah, or jumping out a tree and DDTing your friend into a gate and hope you don't.
Oh, don't
But
get me started on that.
but so he's right that anything, if you know how to use it properly, could be a lethal weapon.
Yes.
But it all comes back down to personal responsibility and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I also agree that I don't know about shooting, but we started a pro coin pitching league, and the hand eye accuracy of young girls surpass young boy. Like girls want everything.
Really? Oh, there you go, Embrace.
So I don't negate their ability. But the personal accountability is like the first thing. The conflict resolution, all those things, and those are the only things I was stressing because that's what's important. Like anybody can use a weapon.
Correct.
You can delete somebody with a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
But is it whatever you're grabbing a knife for? Is it important enough to do a lethal stab to somebody with a kitchen knife?
Right.
So this is a good conversation though. I'm in the clouds, bro. I like this topic though. You did good today, bro.
I appreciate you coming through, man. And I be seeing you out there. I really appreciate your perspectives, man. And you're always welcome. So again, we typically do a call-in show about once a month here. We go through topics and whatnot, but every once while. So again, feel free to come back anytime. Anything you want to chop it up with us, we'd love to have you. But much respect to you out there.
No doubt.
All right, bro. You have a great night. Thanks for coming by.
This reminds me of a funny story. I had a friend of mine that I was a karate teacher full time, and I did a little training on the side with anything you could. I mentioned 100 times on the channel.
Right.
So one of my customers says to me, like, "Hey, Pete, I really want to also learn how to use a fire." I'm like, "Okay, I can teach you." She goes, "Really?" Yeah. So I'm like, I want to buy one. Like, I recommend you trying. She went and bought one. A 357 Magnum for her first firearm. I'm like, you have a cannon on your goddamn one, and she's literally 5'2". I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad.
Right.
So
well, actually, that's a good question. Then, so if you are, like I said, I'm not anti. Okay, so if you would recommend for someone like me, then okay, if I did ever decide to buy a firearm, what would be one to start with, or even to practice with, or whatever? 9mm.
9mm M9.
M9.
The M9 is Beretta, I believe. If I remember, they might make is what the military used for years and years. They switched over to something else now, but it's a great. It's a bulky gun, but it's a great firearm to learn on. That's what one of the first firearms I actually shot till, and it's just because it's very easy to get your fundamentals down, like how to look down your eyes.
Yeah, well, Embrace. She said that she learned how to shoot a rifle and a revolver. Evolve VT at the age of 9. So so she started with some of the big stuff. I would think a rifle would be too. I mean, the kickback on a rifle for a 9-year-old,
you would. It depends on the rifle.
Yeah.
So this woman got a 357 Magnum. That is it's a cannon.
That's a hip. Yeah.
So her first shot goes downrange, and she got those human paper ones, right? The first one goes right to her groin. I'm like, oh. The next 3 rounds is literally right in her heart. 1, 2, 3 in a row. I looked at her like,
yeah.
You never shot a gun? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You're full of shit. I went to her. But my point is, anybody, like the point of her that, like when I taught her how to do a throw, I'm like, she was natural. Boom, just on point every time. Didn't even was no practice.
Right.
Hey, some women are more natural in some things, and I'm not saying. Should be, gearing up to go to a World War III. I'm not saying that. I'm saying some things they're more, some girls are natural, like throwing skydive sand on my head. Yeah.
Well, again, hand-eye is one thing, or control is one thing, but as Dirty was talking about, conflict resolution or not.
I want to based on that. If you're in a life-saving situation and you pull your firearm, you're not going to be like, calm. You're going to be shaking all over the place. Your adrenaline's gonna be kicking in. You need to find out your nice air control. And it was one thing they're starting lately is, I guess I want to say tactical training. I'm not sure what you want to put it. They give you real scenarios with BB guns, obviously, and you're literally running into a room, have your heart pounding, going crazy, and this shake becomes more controllable because you're controlling your breathing now.
Right. Well, look, I know guys even in law enforcement. I mean, they've told me like they passed their whatever the gun test or whatever to pass to get on the force. Yeah, I mean, they some guys have failed multiple times. So even people who are actually pursuing this as a career, it's not. Oh, and these are not small, frail guys. These are big, 6'2", 200-pound guys or whatever. Will oftentimes not do well on these tests as well. So it's certainly from a skills perspective. It is certainly, I would think, on orders of magnitude more difficult to know how to properly shoot a gun than it is to wield a knife or like I said, a hammer or anything else. There's really no skill involved. But if you really want to, handle a weapon, and use it accurately, then yeah, that's going to take weeks, months of training, repetition, and so that's no joke. So for those who learned early, or again, we're in a culture where it was treated seriously and there was a process in place. More power and respect to those who gone through that. So I'm glad that Embrace at that young age, had that training and dirty folks and whatnot. I think we need more of that, not less of it. And certainly I would welcome that. But one thing I wanted to go back to was you talked about the gun laws in the United States. So I wanted to share, see if I could share the slide here. I wanted to talk about, so I just tried to, okay. So I want to go to the next slide. So again, so this is just globally. So you kind of see where the U.S. is. And again, we're talking about developed nations. So we're not talking, Rwanda or anything like that. We're talking, amongst developed nations, there's a high incidence of gun violence relative to other developed nations. But what I wanted to go to my next slide was here. And we talk about, you made a statement about, do gun laws work? So this is the CDC, all right? And again, you can say what you want. I mean, I think one thing, especially when you're having these polarized topics, sometimes we even fight over the sources, because these days there's so many sources of information. You can get confirmation bias in terms of what you want to get. But I looked at least 5 or 6 sources for information on gun violence in the United States. And if we talk about the places where they have the strictest gun laws, so this here is death rates per 100,000. And if you look here, the places that have the loosest gun law, again, you look at the South, especially you look at Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alaska, of all places. If you look at that, certainly these are the highest incidents of gun violence. And it's not even, I don't even think this is an ethic thing, because a lot of times people try to bring up points or, an inner city black urban youth or something like that. You don't have a lot of black people in Alaska, but the homicide rates up there is very high. So when we talk about, and again, I'm willing to have the discussion or argument when you say that if gun laws don't work, why is it in these places where you have these strict gun laws, why are the incidences of death by guns lower? And these are also not only places that have a lot of gun enforcement, these are the most densely populated areas in the country. So, I'm asking if somebody can explain it to me, but I'm just looking back on the statistical data. This is from 2022. And I'm just asking the question, how would you explain this then if, in fact, you're saying that gun laws don't work?
So I'm going to push back on this a little bit. The reason is for PA, at least. I can only speak for PA. Where the color is, we're like mid-range. The gun laws are so lenient here, it's not even funny. I'm not as lenient as Texas. I know, again, I don't know if BMU is watching or if you can comment on how lenient the gun laws are over there in Texas. But
I know Texas is like open carry. I think like literally it's like the Wild West. You can actually have one on your hip, right?
Here too, actually. So you just need, the only thing you need to own a firearm is a valid PA license. They're gonna run it. You will you're clean. They'll hand it to you the same day. You can open carry up to 10 guns on you. I mean, you can put 10 guns around your hip, on your leg, on your back, whatever.
Like Deadpool, right? Mercenary.
Literally. Now, to get a CCW, a concealed carrying permit, you need 2 references. Go to the sheriff's house. You drop a deposit. 2 weeks later, you pick it up. You pay the other rest, and you get your picture, and you're out the door. How more lenient is that? But I hear gun violence. Obviously, what happened recently with President Trump is in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I don't know how accurate this is. That's all I'm pushing back because again,
and that's the so trying to have a discussion. Like I said, everybody can look at, again, you can discredit CDC, you can discredit or whatever the source is. More time, I'm saying as a general topic, it's harder to have a debate or discussion because the data is oftentimes questioned. Here's another one from another source. All right, so this is from U.S. News and World Report. So again, if you compare this one from the CDC, this one is from U.S. News and World Report source, the National Center for Health Statistics. Again, similar pattern. The Deep South, again, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, New Mexico, Alaska, very similar. The states where
I'm very
the
surprised with Alaska. I'll be honest with you. Be
yeah.
on the hot side. Unlike New York, for example, like again, I have my cousin who just retired very recently from the police, PD, and he was a detective. And I know I got a phone call once about I want to say like 10 years ago, maybe more. He was shot. He was shot in the line of duty, and lucky he just got his vest. It hit his vest. Nothing happened to him. They didn't go through. It was lucky.
Right.
But it could have been 2 inches over or 2 inches left or whatever. It could have been bigger. Whatever the case is, there are obviously not every bullet the vest is going to stop.
Right.
So by that said, I know New York and New Jersey are the two most strictest states that I know of with gun law.
And based on the stats, they have the lowest incidence. This whole area, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all this area.
I do, and with my cousin, most of these homicides he went to, because it was a homicide in Texas, it was done with firearms, and all of them were done from the black market again.
Yeah.
So I'll take this with a grain of salt, personally. Again, you might want to believe it. That's fine. It's up to you. But
and that's Right. I think I have one more here. This is what I wanted to show, because now we get in the previous slides we're dealing with states. The next one's here again. Violent crime per 100,000 people. This was taken from 2020, and again you could look at the places. Again, Memphis, Monroe, Louisiana, Anchorage, Alaska has the third highest incidence in the country.
The only reason I think that's I'll give that to Alaska, because Anchorage is where all the craft fishermen are going to, and most of them do have firearms, and most of them get drunk and being stupid. So maybe that has some, and there are almost some on drugs too, obviously.
Right.
Because Alaska is actually one of the highest states with a drug problem because of the craft fishing they have. Right. So I'm gonna give that.
But I just want
LA. I'll give them too, because I know LA is not a friendly place to walk through the town.
Well, let's go through this. The reason I want to show this. All right. So again, look at some of these places here: Little Rock, Lubbock, Florence, Fairbanks, Sumter. I mean, these aren't necessarily household names here. Shout out to Lost in Translation. Bless you, brother. Always appreciate you being here. Just going through these places: Rockford, Gainesville, Corpus Christi, Stockton, Pueblo, Odessa, Bakersfield. I'm not seeing what we oftentimes talk about when we talk about this. Here's Kalamazoo. Who's in Kalamazoo? South Bend, Indiana. New Orleans, okay, I may give you that one. Jackson, may give you that one. Chattanooga, Beaumont, Texas, Kokomo, Indiana. What's going on in Indiana with all these deletions? I have no idea.
Surprised some of this, to be honest.
And look at this. So you talk about the top 50 cities in the United States. What wasn't mentioned here? New York City wasn't mentioned. Chicago wasn't mentioned. Every time you talk about gun violence, even in my community, everybody wants to talk about, well, Chicago. And shout out to, again, my man which is here. I know he's from Chicago. And again, he may have a totally different perspective. He could say these statistics are totally bunk. Yeah, I'm just saying, based on
can you drop what his opinion is in the chat.
Based on the data from 2020, and well, let's see if there's a city in Alabama. Let me see if I can go back here. And so we got Tennessee, New Orleans. Let's see here. Do we have a city in Alabama? Bakersfield, Texas, Pueblo, Arkansas. Yes, I'm looking for AL. Is there an AL here? Oops, I went back the other way. AL, Kalamazoo, AR, Pueblo, Louisiana, Corpus Christi, Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Georgia, Illinois, Detroit, Pine Bluff.
Detroit, I'm not surprised.
So, yeah, I'm not seeing a particular city in Alabama on this list of the top 50. But, again, if I go back to the states, then Alabama is rated pretty highly, certainly here, based on these states' state statistics. So again, I'm not sure which cities, particularly. I don't know if Mobile would be on this list, or you would think Mobile would be here. But again, the general point I'm making, I don't see Chicago. But every time people talk about gun violence, they always talk about Chicago. It's how crazy it is in Chicago. So I don't know how to then interpret this data. And this came from.
Isn't Trey Ferg from Chicago?
Trey Ferg, well, I think he's from there, but I think he lives in Louisville, Kentucky at this point. But again,
I want to ask him. That's why I'm curious.
Yeah. So, so again, just on the point of if we want to say, well, gun laws don't work, there's statistical data that may say otherwise. Again, you can disagree with the statistical data. If there's another source, again, I'm open to. Yeah, well, that's the thing, Lost. That incident with the boating incident in Alabama, with all that melee going on, the almost the miracle of it is that nobody. And again, I don't know what the laws are in Alabama. Actually, again, anybody wants to come up and join this conversation, again, the link should be in the chat if you wanna hop up to give your input. But to me, the thing is, again, assuming Alabama has somewhat liberal gun ownership laws, that when people are getting hit over the head with chairs and literally that sort of thing, that nobody that a firearm, they were using everything else except the firearm. So again, I don't know what the laws of the state. I know Mandrell, he's also from there. So again, I'm not aware of the of the situation in Alabama when it comes to gun ownership. But why the homicide rates? Again, I listed again 3 different sites. And Black David, I also had some links that I had posted in the back. I don't know if you want to show any of those, because I think the websites, for some reason, I can't get the show on the screen as much as if I load the slides up. But there's others as well that is consistent, like across the board. It's showing these numbers in these deep red states where the violence is high. A lot of these places are rural. They're not necessarily inner city necessarily. At least not. I know Memphis and Louisiana and whatnot, but again, yeah, go ahead.
Some of them are showing on the slides. I am questionable for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like PA was one of them, and I know the laws are very lenient here, so I expect the number to be a lot higher. And I speak to cops all the time, because they're at the courthouse, literally like 10 minutes from my house.
Right.
So I bullshit with them on a daily basis. I see them at the gym and all of this stuff.
Right.
So the biggest thing I always hear them talking about is 3 things actually is
So you can carry, yeah. So open carry. So I mean, but why all the high incidents? At least based on the numbers that I or the statistics that I was showing, why they're in the deep red? That's the question. But we may be needing to introduce something else here, in that Pennsylvania, compared to some of these southern states, is relatively wealthy. Like if you talk about per capita income in some of these states or whatnot, PA might be up there a lot more than Mississippi, Alabama. I mean, a lot of these places, Little Rock, Arkansas and whatnot, these are poor countries. I mean, the average salaries in these countries relative to the rest of the nation, West Virginia, a lot of these places, there's a lot of poverty. And so just like anything, if there's poverty, could that also be a factor we need to put in here when it comes to the rate of homicides and whatnot, because of lack of opportunities, or also I didn't even see, where was Baltimore in that? I didn't even see Baltimore listed amongst those. And we talk all these things about Baltimore. I didn't see Baltimore on the list, because I think a lot of people, when they do that, it's a lot of dog whistle that I hear. When they talk about Chicago, when they talk about Baltimore, whatever, that, a lot of folks I've heard try to use that to indict black people when it comes to these statistics. But I looked at, when you can't use that when Anchorage, Alaska, and Alaska only has 500,000 people in the state, but yet they're third in the nation when it comes to homicides. But nobody equates Alaska with black people. One, is too cold, and we just don't like We just don't like living up there. But I'm just curious. What do we do with these numbers? But I'm just wondering, does poverty play a role in these areas where they have, poor infrastructure, poor opportunity? Like I said, West Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi, all these places. Could that be factoring into the rate of violence when there's extreme poverty in these these places? Again, I'm just asking a question.
Like one of those high end states that you making all this money, whatever job you get. It's actually like more like
Pennsylvania. Let me look up per capita by state. You can go ahead and make your point, but I just want to get some information on Pennsylvania.
The average salary is around 55 to 60,000 if you work in state. So now if you work out of state or have like his IT job, work from home, you might make a little more. It's rare when you hear somebody in at least in my town, in the Strasburg, Pocono area, you make it about over 100,000. Really rare. So by that said, like I said, every conversation I had with any officer in the area, the four things I always hear is domestic violence, drugs, and firearms are always those. And some of them, there's some like misdemeanors and some bullshit in the middle, obviously. But firearms is one of the top ones. They get called in a lot.
Right.
But again,
but here's something I got. This is from marketwatch.com. In fact, I'll put the link. I could put the link in the chat here. Just goes over some of the top salary guide. So Pennsylvania is like sort of upper middle. They're 20th. So the top states: Massachusetts, New York, California, Washington, New Jersey, Maryland, Connecticut, Colorado, Alaska. Top salaries. The bottom: Mississippi, Arkansas, West Virginia, South Dakota, Alabama, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Louisiana. So again, is there a correlation between the poverty that could possibly be in these states that leads people to crime, or how do we rationalize? So we talk about the gun laws being fairly liberal, but are people safer in those areas? And if not, why not? Is it due to the gun trafficking that takes place? Because one thing I notice when I go to the South right away, and it's like as soon as I pass Delaware, the gun shops are like on almost like in the Northeast in Jersey, you got a liquor store in every corner. In the South, there's a gun shop on every corner. It's just like it's
here that the guns are a little lenient. Are there every corner in Pennsylvania? No, but are they around? Yes. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Maryland, for example. Like I have a couple of buddies who live in Maryland. It's very, very, very hard to get a firearm in Maryland. That's when you don't see firearms out shops. I mean, gun shops in Maryland as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Loss brings up a point. How does education play a part in this in this equation? Again, those same states that I was talking about, poorest education in a lot of those states. Arkansas, they rank at the bottom in terms of level of education in those. So again, are we talking about a multitude of factors that are leading to do that? So again, his ghetto point of view. Again, thanks for contributing. Between the gangs, if you can go back to the previous one, between the gangs with ghost firearms and the migrants having gotten their hands on firearms as well, and it's becoming very bad and unlivable. All right, so go to the next one. Next point that he had. A gun shop and a church on every corner. Yeah. The problem is in a place like New York is that only criminals have the firearms and they're openly firing in front of their children. They're also robbing people in broad daylight and no one can defend themselves. Again, I don't want to disagree with your point. My only question is, where's that showing up in the metrics? New York, New Jersey, lowest homicide rates in the nation. The ones with the most liberal gun laws amongst some of the highest. So how do we make those distinctions? Again, I'm not against law-abiding citizens owning firearms. I'm not saying that. But the question then becomes, and maybe I'll raise the question to you, Grooming, if you're going to be in a situation, well, again, we got to see how those stats. We got to see how those stays. Shout out to Joshua Jones. No issue buying a weapon. Hell, it's not difficult to buy even fully automatics. Ammo is a bigger pain. So again, fully automatic weapons are in the marketplace. And
so
apparently
the fully automatic, you have to get so many different permits, and that's you have to go through the FBI. From what I know, again, don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on it, but from what I understand, you have to go through a federal background through the FBI and all that stuff. And it's a pain in the fucking dick to get it. So that's
good. It should be.
I'll be honest with you,
it should be.
Automatic weapon is a waste of money because you're gonna waste your ammo so fucking fast. It's like let's say you pay $100 for 100 rounds, for argument's sake. All right, I'm not sure where the rounds go right now because I haven't bought ammo in a while. But let's say you go through 1,000 rounds in a second, you just wasted all that money for no reason because you go. That's the problem with automatic. You go, God damn, I'm already done. Shit. But now with even silencers and compressors, because they're two different things. Again, you compressors, I think you only go through the state level, but the silencers, you definitely have to go through the federal background. And 9 out of 10 times you're going to get denied because if you don't have a legit reason why you need it, why do you put a silencer?
Yeah, well, again, Black Man Unfiltered, he's coming through. So again, Josh saying you got to go through a Fed background check to even buy a sidearm. Black Man saying that's incorrect. I have 2 fully automatic weapons, 2 of them, and I did not have to go through the FBI at all.
Again, I'm not an expert. I said that from the start, so I might be wrong on that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so again, I think there's again, even that being the case, again, you add that plus the black market plus the distribution, of these weapons, you create. All right. So according to Governor Hochul, Bronx children have no idea what computers are, so they're definitely an educational issue there also.
So to his point about buying a firearm in New York, if it's hard or not, he cannot. You can buy a firearm in New York. I'm not saying it's not impossible. You can,
right?
But you have to get permits. It's harder. I'm saying. Now, New Jersey, I'm gonna say one thing about New Jersey. I think Paul is gonna back me up on this one. Is very, very, very hard. I know 10 people who apply, only 1% get it usually.
Yeah.
They're even if you use the wrong pen, they'll find a reason to deny you. I'm being very serious. In New Jersey, I know everybody there I know who actually has tried got denied. There's only one person I know got approved of it.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to get it in New Jersey. In New York is a little more lenient to it, but not as lenient as PA or Texas, for example.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's but again, have at the numbers. You can critique them. Again, I can't. These days, again, we're always going to quibble over the statistics or what have you. But see, like what seems to be consistent over everything. Again, whether you have gun laws or not, there seems to be a positive correlation that the stricter the gun laws, the lesser the chances of violence. But again,
Josh's 2 questions. Yes, I do think it's harder, and I'm not saying about permanent. I'm talking about in generalized. Because again, it's been a while since I moved out of New York. I'm not sure what the law is at this point. I've been in PA for 20 years.
Nope, never owned a gun, and quite frankly, never desired to.
We might have to pop his cherry. We might have to get him to the range and shoot a couple rounds off.
Like I said, I got cop friends that have. I mean, they've been on me about going to the fire range. My men's group, my church, they talked about getting some guys together to go to one as well. So I trust me, I've been offered. Now I've always found something else to do.
My advice to you is take up the offer one time and see what's it about. It's not going to hurt. If you never do ever again, that's fine.
Right.
You might not. Whatever it comes out, at least you live that experience as, okay, I see what's the deal with it. Oh, okay, I understand now. So, and I know I'm more. Me and me are gonna probably gang you up and say, yeah, let's have you and Lawson. All of us are gonna say, at least go for that experience one time, and then we can have a better conversation, and even not say better, education on your experience that day. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's my opinion. Yeah.
So again, Black Man's asking, how can I protect my family? live in a better neighborhood. Don't do stupid stuff. Don't be in places where I have no business being. Lots of things that and I've lived in poor places as a kid and all that kind of stuff. So look, it's something that quite frankly, I don't. I've never in my life spent a lot of time worrying about, and nobody in my friend circle, at least in the Northeast, like I said, unless you're a cop or someone who comes from that background, if you're military or whatever, again, they'll have it. But a lot of my friends, we don't even talk about it. We just try to put our families in the best position to win, educate yourselves, and keep it moving. But we don't worry about that. And again, based on the statistics that I've shown in this area of the country, I have little to worry about. So that's my answer. It may not be the most popular, again, especially in this space where, again, I recognize and I respect the guys who are, certainly very much gun owners and come from that culture. Again, my family is from that culture, so I get that. But I'm the Yankee, and there's a reason for that. So again, my dad had no desire to teach me anything about guns. He grew up on the farm. None of my uncles, no one ever introduced us to that. When we moved up north, it just wasn't something that everyone's. My brother, I doubt. And if you ask my brother, I don't think he ever. He's 6.5 years older than me. I don't think he's ever really handled a gun either. So it's just not something that we, we felt was important, or something that we prioritize. When I was in college, we never talked about, oh, do you own a gun or you need to own one. That was just not the discussions that we had growing up. So again, it wasn't a priority to most of us.
See, here's the thing, Paul. And I know when you say live in a better neighborhood and all this stuff, but if shit's the fan, like somebody wants to break in your house or whatever the case is, right? It doesn't matter you're in a good neighborhood or bad neighborhood, it's gonna happen. If you know what I'm saying. But like I said earlier, I'm gonna make the statement again. When shit hits the fan or something is going down, usually the cops are nowhere near around. They usually show up after the bad stuff happens. They clean up the mess. So it's really up to you to find a way to protect your family. And they do have firearms, to be honest with you, around are non-lethal, like rubber bullets, for example, and so on. So me personally, I don't care. I live in New York, New Jersey, or the moon. My side piece is staying on me. It's simple as that. If I had to put it around in him or protecting my family, I'm gonna put several rounds in. I'll empty the whole clip if I have to, because my family comes out. And this is why I got cameras everywhere in my house. So they see, oh, he actually broke in his house. I warned him, get out of my house several times. And then I finished the clip in him. Okay, now I'm in the right because he broke in an entry.
Right.
So instead of Pennsylvania, you have the right to kill. I literally say that, right to kill in the laws if he breaks in your house.
Yes.
And he's a threat to you. I'm not sure what New Jersey, New York laws are right now like that. But if he breaks in your house, your ass is mine.
Yeah, for sure. Ghetto Point of View has a question. I'm assuming it's mostly talking to me, but I'll ask it to you as well. Do you ever worry about an invasion from another country, especially with the current political climate?
Yes. I would say yes, 100%. I think it is very possible. What movie was that? Red Dawn.
Yeah, Red Dawn.
I know this movie is fiction, but there's some reality behind it too. I'm not saying,
But
Russia.
hang on, but there's a backstory behind that. There was a nuclear burst. So
I'm talking about the new one more.
I'm talking about the 84. I go back. I remember the original movie of 1984. So in that one, there was a nuclear war that took out most developed nations and security systems than anything else. So at that point, you're talking about the survivors who were, in base. So yeah, a lot easier than that. So again, if there is going to be something like that pops off, that might be even a bigger issue to worry about, and most of us probably won't even be here to do anything about that. But again, if you want to,
people don't realize one thing, because I know we are always beefing with Russia somehow. All right, like definitely right now with the cut them out with the financial and everything. Alaska and Russia is not that far away. If they say they froze their ocean to the point they can carry tanks on the ice, and and we're really to the point like they really want to come after us. And let's be honest, Putin's a fucking psychotic bastard. He shouldn't even be in power. He should be in a fucking cuckoo house with Joker and all those guys. It is a way to just drive tank and realize it. Will they do it? Probably not, because they don't want the backlash. Because if they come after us, they have to also work with our allies on top of that. So that's why they do it. But it is a possibility. I see more shit hitting fan the other way around, actually. I do see, I see it two different ways. One, I do see, I know it's a movie, but I see a reality behind it. The newer one, it was more, we're beefing with Russia, and they came across. Okay, not through Alaska, they're through planes or whatever. Okay, they got through our borders. But you forget, we also have beefing with China sometimes too. So if Russia and China teamed up, and they are teaming up, they may be able to get through our borders very easily. The other possibility I also see, I know again you might call me crazy, and you have the right to call me crazy, is let's say right now with how high stakes we are in our elections, one party is not agreeing with the other one. Remember what happened last one is that they stole the votes. They went after the Capitol. What tells you this time it won't be a civil war instead? Is it possible?
Yeah, that I worry more honestly about a civil war than a war from the outside, which may follow the Civil War. But so that to me would be more my concern at that point. And so that may be something I'm gonna have to do. And again, the Civil War may come down, and it's going to be harder because it's not necessarily. I think a lot of it emanates, I think, from the South. But obviously, you can go anywhere outside here, and everyone's kind of intermingled. So it could be literally my neighbor that I may have to contend with in that time. But I don't see how you come out from that. And the other thing that I was talking about early at the beginning of the show is the one thing I'm seeing with the gun culture, at least in the South, but even in the North, I've seen like upstate New York, parts of PA. It goes beyond just owning a gun for personal protection or for hunting, or if you're a collector or whatever. You got guys who got stockpiles.
Absolutely.
And almost like in preparation for a second Civil War. I honestly think that for some, that the Civil War in 1865 didn't end, it just took a pause. And all the stuff that kind of came after that with the Confederacy and why they were rocking Confederate flags and why that was a big issue back in the day, I just think when people say the South will rise again, I do think there's an element of that that is at play here. I do think there's certainly those that are anti-government who are certainly preparing for some sort of armed conflict. I remember those guys. The Bundys. Remember when I think they were on some land that the Supreme Court, somebody said that they didn't have rights to the land or whatever, and you had all these guys, Ted Bundy and these guys, they were sort of lined up, and they had to stand off with some federal marshals or something like that, and the marshals for some reason they didn't go in and take them out or whatever. But I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of militia groups. I think there's a large number of groups who are readying themselves for that kind of conflict.
And there was a group a while called the 3 Percenters. They were supposed to be a militia group, but if I remember correctly, they got hit hard with a RICO case because have one leader steps down, the next one in. And when the leader came in and he literally smuggling guns and drugs, it became a gang pretty much versus a peaceful, militia group that got together once in a while, in every state, every chapter, and just have a few drinks and have fun, little practice drills and nothing crazy. Now, besides what you said, okay, you have two kind of people with that. You got those people who are piling up, like waiting for a civil war or worst case scenario happen, shit hit the fan. You have the other guy who actually like collecting guns. There's a little hobby they have. It doesn't hurt anybody. They collect them, they put them in their closet or safe or whatever, and just leave it, and they shoot them once in a while.
Right.
So,
but aren't those the guys who collect classic stuff or whatever, or these guys just got to get the latest gun on the market? It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I know a little both. They do a little both.
Yeah.
Like I know my buddy Mark, who owned a gun shop here, and he moved to actually Texas, where BMU's area is, because he owned a gun shop. He made more money going to Texas. Anyway, long story short, he 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 collected a little bit of everything. Old school, new school, didn't matter. He even had a musket. I'm like, how did you get this? She's like, I got traded.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, a lot of those classic the ivory handled revolvers and things of that nature. I mean, beautiful.
Beautiful guns.
They're meant to be they're meant to be like displayed, not armed. But I'm talking guys like you go into like their backyard and it's almost like remember out of Terminator 2 where they went to the guy and he pulled this big sled and they go down into this basement and you got all this stuff and the minigun and all that. People are, I think that's some real stuff. I think people are.
This conversation, like we're just having a conversation. We should have a little armor in our house, like because we're both into it, and then but that's something we're into. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Even she shoots better than me, but that's a different story.
We're really? Oh, okay.
I got to give her credit. She shoots a little better than me for now.
Yeah.
But my point is trying to get to is, we talked about it, like we should get like a he and she's got a gun, like custom, like she might get pink, I'll get black, or whatever the case is. And there are people like that. They get matching guns with their other half. Mm-hmm. But also the other half, like myself, I used to be a big collector with them. Only reason I stopped is just got too goddamn fucking expensive.
Yeah,
that shit.
As everything else is.
And some other things came up. I had to sell them off to pay something more important, like a car payment, for example, or whatever. So my point is trying to get to there are a lot of collectors who collect any type of gun. Mm-hmm. But you have those guys, the bunky 911 guys who go ready to go to war. Mm-hmm. And this.
All right, now
do I see a civil war happening? In our generation, I don't know. I can't answer that question.
I would say in our generation, I would say it's more likely than an invasion from the outside. I would say that.
I'll give you that much.
I would think that would have to pop off first. They catch us off guard. We're in a state of chaos or whatnot. We get putting out all these fires and whatnot, and then I think that would be more likely in that situation. But I want to move into another area here where we talk about. We kind of touched that early on in terms of people getting trained and registered and all those things, but a lot of these mass deletions that we've been seeing, has come from very mentally unstable people, including the most recent one, unfortunately. And again, I'm not voting for the man. I think I've already said that, but God is my witness. I want nothing to happen to him or anyone like that. I mean, I think that was a terrible, and that was literally an inch away of really turning into a very tragic situation that could have kicked off something very bad. So I'm thankful that he came out of that alive. I sincerely mean that. But again, from what we're hearing about the suspect, now he's no longer a suspect. They deleted him. But again, there's a lot of these mentally unstable people. There was this guy who was former military, came out and did a mass deletion. We hear about the school. Deletions of children by people who are unstable. The one up in Connecticut, his mom knew he was unstable, but but she got him like a gun for Christmas or something like that. I mean, so at what point should people not be allowed to own firearms? Now, I know you talked about a friend of yours. I think he had a drug crime. He couldn't own one, but one who did a violent crime could own one. Is that
a coworker of mine?
Co-worker. So what he did? It was a drug crime or a violent crime?
It was a drug crime, and he got caught 4 times with distribution of heroin. I believe it was 4 times, by the way. Baggies, 9 yards, everything. And it was like, I'm talking about like a couple bags. I'm talking about kilos. I'm like that's a lot of shit. I looked down, I'm like, what the fuck are we gonna do that? I was making money. I'm like, how much money are you fucking making? And I'm like, he told me, I can't remember now. He gave me some weird number, like, holy fucking shit. And I'm like I'm in the wrong fucking business. Like numbers that you like, I know they make serious money, but not risk my freedom. I'm sorry. Not risking my freedom.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
What your question was?
So again, for these, in terms of, because again, a lot of advocates, Second Amendment, whatnot, they don't typically like a lot of restrictions on, gun ownership. Some, again, Josh was saying, I don't think he's opposed to gun registration. He doesn't think guns should be registered. But do you think that there's certain classes of people then who should not be allowed to own firearms? Is there? Do you have any thoughts of that? Because again, it seems like a lot of people who commit these acts have some instability somewhere.
I am a
in them.
believer
So
of mental health checkups. If you get mental health, I'll give you a good story. If you remember a couple of years back, this guy shot two cops in Pennsylvania. His name was Eric Matthews.
mhm.
I think it was Echo Matthew Freedy, something like that. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, so he was not mentally okay. He was literally playing these war games. He wanted the worst case scenario to happen. He was piled up. So he ended up shooting this cop, two cops for one reason, he said. The one he shot in the groin because he was literally sleeping with his brother's wife. And the other one was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And he just had to take out the evidence.
Mhm.
Literally, the FBI, I'm not even joking, FBI was knocking on my door daily, checking my
Wow.
car. I was smuggling
Wow.
him. I know it was going to work because he was in my area. So they were checking, and they ended up finding him in an abandoned airport end of the day at war places. But it was literally tanks and National Guard. Everything was up here. I'm like, the fuck is going on here? I think they were playing war games. But this guy was not stable. Nowhere near. I'm like, okay, his brother's wife was having an affair. That is not your business to put a bullet in somebody. I'm sorry, that's not the right way to do it.
Mhm.
He should, the brother should have, filed a divorce, whatever the case was, go through the right motions.
Mhm.
Why thinks, everybody should own a gun? No, if you're not mentally ready.
So right, so I'm saying, give me the list. So mental, if you've been
Anger
evaluated to have a now that's a problem too. And again, I know this personally from having family members. And again, I've been pretty transparent here, including my mother, who had to deal with mental illness. Getting someone diagnosed or getting someone into the system isn't easy. So to even get them the treatment that they need, for those things, unless they do something violent or they do either harm to someone else or harm to themselves. When you get law enforcement involved, oftentimes I've seen, and a lot of times that's when you can have these interventions where, state can step in or some agency to get these people treated. But to get people to voluntarily say, oh, I think I got an issue, I need to talk to somebody. Or how would you even invoke that to get people the help that they need? And then what type of help are they getting? Is it just meds just to stone them out of their mind so they become basically invalids? Or, so how would you even start that process of ensuring that a lot of these people kind of get that help? Now, Lost made a point earlier about, again, how many of these lone wolves were married with kids. Certainly the profile that I've seen, again, I would have to look at statistics of that in terms of the some of these folks. Did some of them have wife and kids or not? Again, I do not know. But certainly the profile tends to be that they're young. A lot of them tend to be maladjusted, sort of awkward, have difficulty forming friendships with people. Could be possible depression is. There's a lot of things, and a lot of them, again, just from what I've seen, a lot of them tend to be white. Now, again, I don't have any proof evidence of that. And again, as soon as I say that, someone's going to say, well, what about all the shootings in Chicago? But again, we looked at a list. Chicago wasn't on the list. So I don't want to go into I don't want to necessarily go into that again. But for a lot of these people, they seem to fit a profile. And I think it's certainly a bigger problem that I don't think could be fixed overnight. Because I've said many times in these spaces on the BMLU platform, the last time America invested in men, young men, was those men who returned back from World War II after 1945. They set up FHA so you can buy a home, the GI Bill so you can go to school, and there was a job because a lot of those folks came back to factories. So essentially, those three things helped to build up the middle class. So again, a guy could have a career, get married, have a family. And in recent years, with plant closings and whatnot, again, the prospects for a lot of these young people is such where I think you may see more of this in the future. If a person thinks that they're hopeless or that they're alone, they get into environments, they get into dark web stuff, they get into things that radicalize them in certain ways. Yeah, so America, in terms of how it's doing things, may be breeding more of these lone wolves that then go out and commit these atrocities. The question I have, though, is should people like that have access to firearms? Or do you have to, at least in the short term, limit or have stricter laws until this country gets serious about wanting to deal with the mental health of millions of potential Gen Zers and younger people that that are having these issues? Are we fomenting it in this country? So again, I'm not, and again, I don't have the solution. I just know these things happen, and I would like to see them end. How are these people able to get access to these things? So again, there's a gun culture, like my man was on earlier, talking about how his father raised him and gave him that proper guidance in terms of how to use. I think we need that. I think there needs to be more young, gun clubs in terms of, working with these youth and young people to, give them some sort of structure. But again, you got to be talking about the values also. And how do you say that should be the last resort before you go to something? I believe in all of that. But how do we address this? This is going to keep happening. Again, we saw the statistic earlier. Amongst developed nations, we dwarf everybody. And I don't know, what could be done about that. But if you want to talk about mental health, we don't take mental health seriously now. I've been dealing with this for 40 years. And we don't treat mental health seriously. But everyone says we need to focus on mental health. I don't even know what that means. Or how do you get people into it if the country's not going to take it as seriously as it needs to be? So are
you against making it mandatory?
Making what mandatory?
Mental health, at least once a month, see a therapist.
It would have to be, but again, I'm saying the current laws do not support a mandatory unless you do something violent.
But I'm
unless you get law enforcement.
Now, would you be against that?
Against what? Making
mandatory.
How would you implement it? And who starts it off? So I got a family member who's been acting out kind of crazy, kind of maybe fits the profile or something like that. I call a hotline or something. Hey, I got a son or daughter who seems to be, expressing some signs. I'd like to get them mentally evaluated. I mean, is that the process you're talking about? That you don't need an intervention or you don't have to convince the person that they need help or whatever. I could just say that my kid is acting crazy, my mom is acting crazy, my pop is acting crazy. Lock them up and get them evaluated.
I look at mental health like regular, like going to see a doctor, getting your regular checkup. Nothing different about it. You should get a mental checkup every once a month. I think anybody.
So mandating a mental health initiative for everybody.
Yeah.
That I don't think it would come off. Sounds
actually, good. King Smith comment. He agrees with you too. David, wake up back there. I get they're never going to do it, but my personal opinion, I think it should be. That's what I'm saying. I think it should. And I know, like King says, it might take years before that it wouldn't be even a factor on somebody's radar to do that. But again, I think it should be. That's my personal opinion. I think everybody should go monthly, get a mental checkup.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't know what's going on with your head, bro.
But it's 330 million people in this country.
But how many doctors do we have? How many? Same thing as doctors. How many doctors do we have? 300 million doctors. I'm not the world. I'm talking about our country.
Not well, for what I understand, not enough, and it's definitely we don't have a lot in the mental health field. In fact, my daughter, she's going to medical school for psychiatry, so hopefully she can do some good in that space. But I just don't see pouring money at it again. You can't just pour money at the issue. You got to train people and build up something. It could, like he said, it could take years, if not decades, to try to put that together. But again, if you want to make people didn't want to take the jab. So you're saying people should go in for a mandatory checkup. People were arguing whether or not they should take the jab or not. So how do you mandate people to do something like that?
I know that's going to be hard. I'm not disagreeing with none of that, what you're saying. But I'm saying I think it should. I think it should at some point. We're going to have to look at us and like deeply as humanity and says, do we actually need to start taking this more seriously?
Yeah. And I think there needs to be, again, a lot more attention on young people. All right. I mean, I'm just looking in my area now. You can't get an apartment in my area for under $2,000 a month. I mean, it's the cost of living and opportunities for some of these folks. I know people say, be an entrepreneur and do other things to make money and whatnot. I don't know, is this generation or this Gen Z and younger generation, are they as optimistic about their opportunities than the older millennials or the Gen Xers or what have you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Then we got Joshua Jones in the back. Joshua, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing, sir?
I'm
First
good.
of all, no. How are you doing? I mean that. First of all, I appreciate you. I like when you're here. And so again, it's good to hear from you always. So good evening.
Get ready for shots because I know he's going to throw him some fireballs.
He might,
right now.
but I just we're just having a conversation here. I don't have the answers or whatnot. I know you're very opinionated on certain things, and just give us what you got, brother, and just let's talk, man.
Oh crap. So heads up, I guess, since you asked how I'm doing. I'm getting ready to get reposted to Lebanon. I have no idea
man.
They I knew it was coming. They've been arguing and I fighting it, and I lost. I always lose. That's how it goes. But anyways, okay. So let's go down the list. You start looking at problems. Let's say like mental health. Let's say hypothetically, you could have some system for screening. What's that, like 340 million people in the U.S.?
Yes.
You wouldn't legally be able to just basically point at specific people. That would be discrimination, big time no. So you can't do it by age, can't do it by race, can't do it by anything. As much as I'd want it to be, politically pointed at the Democrats. I mean, I'd want it.
We know.
Just can't do that,
We
right?
know.
Okay. Now, look at the county. Just start with your local county health facility. They usually have like county clinics. Look at how much it costs for evaluation. You're looking at something around $320 on the taxpayer's dole. So an evaluation every year, however you want to do it. How much property tax do you want to pay? Do you want to own a home? Or do you want to just let a few like crazy people run around? You can't get rid of crazy. You can't get rid of bad people. I mean, it's almost impossible. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically build a system to go after a small minority number of people, all at the cost of making it more difficult. To hell with us. We're old people. We're doing just fine, right? What about the young guys? What about the 18, 19, 21-year-old trying to graduate, get out on his own, get a house, that kind of thing? He now going to get screwed on property taxes.
Yeah.
So, like, what kind of system do we think? The cure is always going to be worse than the disease when it comes down to social issues. Almost always. You guys absolutely hate my take on social issues. So, I mean, like, and that's really crossing a line just on the economical aspects of it, just how much it would cost to it. Your next thing is everybody's talking about like issues with arms, like registration and things like that, you realize that there's centralized databases on ammo, right? You walk into a store and buy too much ammo, you're going to get flagged. You're popping up in a database somewhere. Like
Right.
you can't get around it. Technically, the ATF already has a database. They say they don't, but we know how you go into a store, you buy a firearm, you buy two, you get flagged at the ATF. Doesn't matter whether they're hunting rifles or whatever. They may or may not pay you a visit, find out if you're reselling. But it ain't Walmart that's like basically handing over the information. It's going to be like Visa. Well, Walmart is doing it, but it was originally Visa was doing it because people were dumb enough to buy with credit cards. Now you go in, buy like I had $200 for like a 410 shotty at Walmart, pay cash, that kind of thing. Those guys are getting flagged too. So there's centralized databases.
I got a question for you really fast. I'm sorry to cut you off, dude. Because I know a buddy of mine who bought 5 guns in one day. He never got flagged on anything.
You get
he's
flagged.
not talking about the gun. Well, I thought you were talking about the ammo, not the guns, right?
No. The guns, you get flagged. You're in a database. Whether they show up or not really depends on whether they think something's up with you. Generally speaking, they're supposed to check whether you're reselling the weapons. Because it's that secondhand purchase. Like, say you buy a weapon from a store, right? And then you sell it. Technically, that's kind of like some states that's legal, some states it's not.
Like, say, in Pennsylvania, a rifle, you can do it under a piece of paper. Yeah, I just type something up saying I'm selling it to Joss, whatever, for the amount of $500, and it's illegal. I just get notarized, and that's it. I don't need no background or nothing, and that's okay instead of Pennsylvania.
Right. And so that's kind of what they're trying to kind of get into. And that's why the database system. So when you have, like, let's say you went to the store, you purchased a couple arms, right? Let's say in 25 years, that kind of thing, you better have that receipt. Say 25 years down the road, now you got a problem, right? Let's just say, it was in a hunting accident or something, right? It wasn't even anything malicious. It's just somebody got shot in a hunting accident. That comes back to bite you in the butt. It just depends on what state you're in and whatever it is. But ammo is the real kicker. And there's no way around it. Black powder. You were talking about muskets. I love black powder. I don't have a shoulder left after it, but I mean, it's fun.
It's very fun. Like a 308 is fun as hell too.
308. I used to hunt with a 308. I turned girly and went down to 270. That 308 just killed my shoulder.
So, Josh, can I ask you a little bit, just your gun background? Did you grow up with guns? When did you first learn how to shoot? What was the culture like with that? Were you military at one? And don't get me anything that I know. I understand that.
I'm not military. I'm just statey.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Dad was military. Got my first, I think, 22. It was a bolt action, real long. Like I couldn't even hold the thing up. Had to throw it over a fence post. Got that when I was 5. Got my first shotgun.
5?
Yeah, we're rednecks. That's what we do.
Listen, rednecks do 3 things, buddy. Is Paul, so you understand. 1, they get a firearm. 2, they know how to skin their first goat. And 3, they sleep with their cousins. Simple.
Cousins make dozens. That's our motto.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
So
that's a T-shirt.
The first shotty at 7. That was when I was allowed to hunt on my own. Let's see here. I think somewhere around the time I turned 15 or 16, that's when they changed that law to where now if you're a minor, you can't really have a firearm in your possession without adult supervision. So like the hunting thing. Yeah, if you went with dad kind of thing. But my old man, he didn't like hunting. And at that time, I only liked small game hunting.
Right.
So that might have gotten switched.
Right. So again, this is culture for you. This is home. This is as familiar as video games or anything else. So cars or anything. This is just the culture that you come.
I think it was most of the southeastern states. I believe it was because I don't know anybody from that. Now up north, things got a little weird, right? Upstate New York, if you had a lot of property, then you'd be more exposed to it. But if you were like somewhere around say like New York City, that ain't happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, upstate New York is a totally different. I've seen like Confederate flags in upstate New York. So it's a different world going through Buffalo and Rochester and just driving through there. You definitely feel you're definitely you're in a different culture at that time.
You know what
so
it is? Also, I gotta take a couple of my comments back earlier because I'm so used to saying New York, I'm thinking New York City always. That's what I know as New York.
yeah.
So maybe upstate again. I'm not sure what's going on upstate. Some people might maybe educate me better. Maybe upstate it is easier to buy a firearm and own something. Maybe
So
in New York City it's probably hard.
It depends on what you're talking about. Like a purchase isn't the same as like a carry permit. That's generally what people are complaining about. They want to go in and they want to carry. And that depends on which state you're dealing with, whether it's open carry or concealed. That's what they're talking about when they're running into licensing issues. New York City, notoriously known for turning permits down for carry. Owning, they can't really stop you. I mean, technically, there is no law that prevents you from owning one in your house. Then again, you got to get it to a shooting range or to your buddies. Like everybody I know.
It's always very tricky because in New York, if you're allowed to own it and you get approved for that permit because you have the different permits for everything in New York. But if you get denied for carrying, you can transfer it from your house to the range. Now you're breaking the law technically.
Could be a problem, right? Yeah, could be. It seems to be more of an issue with sidearms, rifles, not so much. I don't think they really care unless apparently, well, I don't know. New York banned ARs for, I think, 10, 12 years. It took them to overturn that one, right? Technically, mine were all illegal because I was out of country. Like, I couldn't, like, get home to move them over to PA, right? I've got a house over there, too. Right. There was just nothing I could do. I was like, crap.
Right. Like, so, Josh, let me ask you, and I know we got a few minutes left in the show. So, again, if anybody was looking to jump on the chat and give you comments before we close out, we got a couple users. Hey, my man, lost in translation. Blessings, brother. Good to see you. Good to see you. Before we close out, but you certainly have a perspective, Josh, of being stationed in multiple countries. Again, you're about to go to Lebanon now. So from your perspective in terms of the gun laws in these countries, and how was it for you? I mean, given that you grew up in a gun culture and going to these different stations around the world, in terms of, so what's your view on, I guess, your global view then of these other countries and how they deal with gun laws and things of that nature? If you just kind of give us a quick summary of that.
The vast majority of countries don't own firearms. Like the civilians don't own. There are some. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a couple countries out there I wouldn't want to mess with, but the vast majority of them, the firearms were always a threat to a government. They were that was always the case. And so whether those countries are ever going to like turn around and allow them in, that's never going to happen. Now, if you're talking about the people, I'd rather, in my line of work, here's my weird saying. Nothing is more dangerous than a pissed off American. That's what I've learned in all my travels.
Right. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing. Anything else before? I just want to, again, we're nearing the end of the show. So if you got another comment before we go over to Lost and close out, Josh, as always,
I to say.
Yeah.
Ask him the same questions. Ask him.
We'll do our best. But thanks for coming up, buddy. And again, stay safe out there, wherever you're stationed, whatever your family's safe, and just all the best, buddy. Really appreciate you. Brother Lost, welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Thank you, sir.
And so we've been sort of chopping it up tonight. And, so I just got questions, man. I mean, we see these things happening. Again, I shared some stats. Again, whether people want to believe the stats or not, again, I don't know. But just what's your take on this matter? Is it even solvable where we can get some of these folks who seem to fit a profile, some of the help they need, but what do you think our energy as a nation needs to be, or in this matter, if this is something that can be solved nationally, or is it up to the individual citizens to take ownership on this issue. So, whatever you got to have on the topic.
You know what, Mr. Bennett, it all boils down to education, man. It really does, and the responsibility of the parents. Just like earlier, Groomer was talking about having a psych evaluation. Well, you can do a psych evaluation on the owner, which is the dad, but who's to say the son's gonna go in there and pick it up and he's unstable? We didn't check him now, did we? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are the things that slip through the crack, but those are the things that actually are the ones that show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason why I mentioned were these guys, lone wolf guys, married or not, those guys really don't have nothing to live for. So that also may play a point in it too as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then on the map that we were talking about, how like example like Alabama was red, but there was not one city that was listed on that list. And my whole thing was this: maybe it's not so much as the big cities that's causing a problem. Maybe it's a more spread out area in smaller locations that add up to, those little, cuts by paperclip, 1,000 cuts by paperclip.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's probably a more rural thing. So to me, I'm thinking it's probably a situation where it comes down to the family members, and a lot of times people don't want to think that something's wrong with their child because nobody thinks that they could produce a child that has a problem with something like that, and they overlook it. That's my boy. I know my boy wouldn't do nothing like that. Of course, you probably heard something like that. Yeah. But my thing is this: I think it always comes back down to education and responsibility. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're a father, you owe it to yourself to talk to your kids, especially your boys. Get a check on them from time to time and say, hey, hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? Check in on your kids, man. Check in with his teachers and his friends, that type of thing. Sometimes those smallest little things like that can mean the world to a kid, to let them know that he does matter, you know, and we wouldn't, have as much situations like this. And also I wanted to ask you, as far as the numbers are concerned, after the war or pre-war, I don't know if they keep these numbers or not, how many mass shootings did we have before Vietnam, before World War II, before World War I? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm thinking that this also may be an economic problem. A guys whose prospects in life may not seem like it's the best. You know what I mean? Because when guys came home from the war, they could go get a loan, buy a house, have kids, that type of thing, and kind of return to a sense of normalcy.
Correct.
But now the money is not worth a doggone. You see what I'm saying? Right.
Yeah.
So guys' prospects may not look as good. So I'm thinking that I want to go back and check the numbers to see if that also ties into economic and also psychological pressures as well, because the economic pressures may trigger the psychological issues.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
But do you think there's also potentially a supply side to that equation? Because you talk about going back to World War I. Now, again, we didn't have, and certainly not in mass abundance, semi-automatics. Full. I mean, those were just kind of coming in vogue. If you owned a gun in the 1920s or 10s or whatever, it was going to be a rifle or some kind of revolver of some type of weapon. But certainly as weapons technology has advanced over the years, and I think it certainly came to head after World War II, Korea, Vietnam, when you started to have the M16s and those kind of weapons. And then you have gun manufacturers starting to make, and I don't even know what the market was for the average civilian for those weapons prior to Vietnam. But then when was it to say, hey, we can start selling these weapons at Walmart or some other entity, and this isn't just for military application? I would like to know when that happened. So is this in part a supply side issue as much as it is a demand issue based on what the psychological makeup of the person is?
To answer your question, pre-Vietnam, most people bought shotguns, hunting rifles, and a home defense was using 1911s or revolvers.
Right. These guys are getting semi-automatic, sometimes fully automatic weapons.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
now they have this switch, as they call them. You can put it to your any firearm pretty much and make it a fully automatic. And the disclosure, that's very, very illegal. So I do not recommend anybody doing that, by the way.
And then what's that new thing I heard about those boom stocks?
No, the bump stock.
Bump stocks. I think the Supreme Court strike down. I think somebody tried to ban them, and then I think the Supreme Court came back and overturned.
Bus stock is just where you literally put your shoulder in, to when you shoot your rifle. It has nothing to do with how
I thought it had
far
to do with I thought it had something to do with clip capacity or something like that.
No. A bump stock
No.
actually it regains I put it so like
Recoil.
it captures the recoil
Yeah, it
to
has
allow
springs
you
in them.
to reload the weapon a whole lot faster.
Okay.
You see what I'm
Okay.
saying? It's
If you get
basically
like a
you're
tactical
jerry
one,
rigging it up
Yeah.
to turn it into
Yeah.
a semi-automatic. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Or
yeah.
fully
yeah, if you
automatic.
got like a tactical one, Paul, for example, and like
Mhm.
Magpul makes a great one actually, and you can buy them in any gun shop. No special nothing.
Right.
It has a
Right.
spring and a buffer. Same thing what your car has.
Right.
And
You can do
Right.
that. You
recoil.
can do the same system just using your hip. They call it hip firing a rifle.
Mhm.
Right.
You can just use a semi-auto, hold it up tight to your waist, and then just basically you have a tight grip on it. Fire off the first round, it'll push in into your waist. Your waist will automatically try to thrust back forward to counter it,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
fires another round, and you just basically go at it. That's
Right.
kind of one of the main arguments that took place with the bump stocks is it's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
You can't stop physics, so
Right.
not true.
Gotcha.
Again, I
Basically, it's a
still
cheat
got to
code.
ask the question as to what are you guys trying to combat? Shootings?
For me, what I would like to, and again, I don't know how realistic it is, and again, I'm just being very transparent about that. But you have this dangerous combination of unstable individuals gaining access to weapons of mass destruction. Not muskets, not rifles, not revolvers, but semi-automatics with clips, and they can do a lot of damage in a very rapid period of time. And I'm just asking, is there anything either in the short term, on the supply side, or on the long term, the demand side? I think the demand side is a longer solution to the points that you raised earlier, which I agree with. I mean, I think grooming was the one who was talking about, everyone getting therapy or what have you. But is there something that can be done on either side to tackle the issue? But that would be my, if I had a wish list, that would be it.
The only thing I would correct you, Paul, is the way you word it: mass destruction. Mass is not mass because you can not killing like million people. Yeah, you might delete a few people, but
Okay,
again,
anything where you're firing multiple bullets in rapid succession and can load another clip, just as quickly and get things out. I mean, a 6-shooter, yeah, you put your bullets in, just the rapid pace that they can be spread and hit. You don't even have to worry about aiming or targets. You're just trying to just cause calamity. So we call it, instead of a weapon of mass, call it a calamity weapon or something, whatever you want to call it. But that because in these, it's the same thing. It's the common. You don't see people with a revolver doing these things. At least I haven't seen a lot of that.
It's very harder to speed load a revolver versus a clip.
Let's ask this same question that we've had historical parallels with.
Mm-hmm.
How well did the Christian Crusades? How did they go about eliminating all of the bad people, the non-believers, the wicked people? Were they successful in eliminating all of them?
No.
So the idea here is you're trying to get rid of a group of people, or at least trying to over-regulate them so that they can't do anything. Yet every time we try to do that in society, we end up making the problem worse.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. Is it a gun problem or is it a people problem? That's the real question.
I would say it's a people problem.
Right.
But even still, if you know you have a people problem, do you still give them access to a melee weapon?
Well, it goes back to what we said earlier. Say, for instance, the owner is a stable dad. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden his son is unstable. But his son has access to the weapon and he takes it, from his father without him knowing, pretty much like what happened in Pennsylvania. You see what I'm saying? But the son was never checked. So my thing is this, I think it's probably more of an educational thing more than anything else. You see what I'm saying? Because anytime we try to over-regulate, usually we swing the pendulum a little bit too far. And that's when you start getting pushback from groups like the NRA.
Yeah. And here's the question I have now for everybody is, okay, the father was elected to secure his firearm in a proper, safe way from his child. Should the father also be charged at that point?
They starting to do it now, man. A lot of
Yeah,
people
that
who are
happened, and
kids are,
there was the parents, right? They got their
yeah, the
son
parents.
went on a mass shooting, and both parents were convicted
Yep.
of of that crime. So yeah, that literally just happened. I think was it Texas or I think it was
I
the
think it
southern
was
state.
somewhere up north somewhere. I think it was
Was
somewhere
it?
up north. Yeah, I think
There's
so.
been a few cases where parents have been criminally
I
charged.
know for a fact it's been 2 recent cases that happened where the mom and dad went to jail.
Yeah, that I remember. I was
Yeah.
watching some clips of that. Yeah.
Historically, though, they've gone after them civilly, though.
No, they put
Yeah,
people
still
in
they
jail.
can do it.
jail.
You can sue anybody for anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. Michigan.
See?
Yeah. Yeah, James and Jennifer Crumley,
Yep.
10 to
them.
15 years. They got both of them for that. So so yeah, it's but do you think more of those convictions are going to take place, and if it does, then do you think that will change the behavior of parents when it comes to trying to have those type of conversations that you're talking about? Loss, can the law be a vehicle to help steer parents and modulate behavior?
I think it's going to do. It's probably going to move the needle a little bit better than what people think it is. I'm going to tell you why. It's going to force parents to actually be responsible parents.
Yeah.
Think about how many parents we have that go to work and leave their kids at home. You know what I'm saying? Both
Latchkey,
people working jobs.
Right.
And now the inflation is out of hand, and this is only going to get worse. So think about it. Back in the day, we only had one member of the family who went to work, but now it takes 2. And everybody
those
around
2
here
have
talking
2.
about, and those 2 got 2. So you got people running around here talking about, you can't pay no bills, you ain't the man, and all this other stuff. But at the same time, your kids going out shooting people up. So guess what? Now you and your husband are going to jail. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it wasn't nothing that you did, but hey, sometimes we have to curtail our wants and needs to prioritize family, which is most important, to make sure that you have a relationship with your children.
I gotta ask this question: are parents more responsible in 2024 than they were, say, 50 years ago?
That's hard to measure, man. That's hard to measure because
We're
we don't know
talking
what
about
changes that people are making.
Yeah, we're talking about society. You're judging the kids now. Well, what's the difference?
Well, I will tell you this. Sometimes there may be economic factors in place. Think about it, man. Stuff is expensive now. So I think weapons are probably the last thing people are thinking about. They're probably trying to pay mortgage and put food on the table and make sure they keep their car notes up and stuff like that. I don't think people really have time to buy weapons.
So I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna back up. Loss. I know several gun shops in my area at least have shut down, and they were in business for years because people are not buying firearms. Like some of them I know very personally, good friends of mine. Like I said, we had to close shop up because I cannot afford the rent anymore because I'm not buying firearms. And their biggest customers were Russians, believe it or not. As funny as that sounds, because
if you're looking at the mass shooters for the last decade, most of them are from middle to upper or middle class to affluent. So it's definitely not
it's not a poverty issue.
Yeah, it ain't the poor kids out there shooting each other.
But again, if whatever relevance you put on that map that I showed earlier, a lot of those states are amongst the poorest and least educated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Education is a big thing in my eyes. I've been saying that from the beginning when we started the stream.
Yeah. But I think we're towards the end of the show. Again, Lost, it really, bro, any challenge you grace, you bring such class and perspective to this, and I just appreciate you being here. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Before we move on. So what do you mean by education being a culprit? Can you give a little bit more details? Please?
I can give you a little bit. we can start out with religion. Religion is always a good start. It teaches you how to handle your neighbors, how to deal with yourself. Like I always say, manners maketh man. And one of those things is how you carry yourself. You don't go around taking other people's lives if you feel guilty about that, that type of thing. Or you start developing relationships with people that's difficult to start relationships with. Those are some of the things that teach us conflict resolution instead of going out harming people. So I think that is a great start. Now, from there, you have family values and what you believe in as a family. Those are the type of things, and you'll start to develop some type of pride into who you are and who your family is. And I think we can initially start from there. And I think if more people had more relationship with other people, they wouldn't want to kill each other. Think about it, man. When we were kids, we used to get into fights and arguments with each other, but we would always do fist fights or whatever. And then at the end of the day, once we're done playing or whatever, roughhousing, we'll go out and we'll go to get an ice cream or something like that. We're just chilling because we're roughhousing. Nowadays, people just want to just take each other away. What was that again?
Why do you call that education?
Because that's what it is. You're educating people. See, I think a lot of times people like to formalize education. They'll say, well, you go to school and you learn this, that, and the other. But sometimes education starts at home. You can educate people on any particular topic. But my thing is this: you have to put in the work and put in the time. But I think a lot of times people want to idolize other things and make other things a priority versus their family. And I think that couple in Michigan found out the hard way. You know what I'm saying? If you don't take enough time with your kids and understand who they are, you'll wind up in jail too.
If you had the ability, if you had your ability to snap your fingers and put some kind of system in place, would you aim it at the children or would you aim it at the existing parents? Who would you target first?
The parents, man, always. Because the parents are the ones who are responsible. And the parents are adults. They have a lifetime of experience, so they can pass that on to them kids. You see what I'm saying? It's hard to teach a child something that they can't see or they haven't had demonstrated to them. Some people are hands-on. Some people you can tell them one time. But my thing is, it's still no substitute for time. There's still no substitute for time.
Absolutely. And I think to your earlier point, Josh, as far as parenting 50 years ago, again, I may have a different perspective, but I don't recall fathers being as involved in the children's life then. That was typically the mother's responsibility to be over the children while the father went and worked. He worked double shift at the factory or the plant or whatever. So how much time was that father, since we're saying that, especially when it comes to gun culture, it's passed through fathers. I don't see too many moms showing their kids how to fire guns and weaponry and things of that nature. So I don't even know if you go back 50 years ago, if it was so prevalent. Again, it might have been in your case or certainly in other people's cases, but how prevalent it was where people were getting that kind of nurturing and environment and taught a healthy respect for it. If mama was home, she was, again, more so the nurturer, but she wasn't teaching you how to point a weapon at 5 years old or 7 or 9 or what have you.
Curious question. Do you think the dad going out and working, do you think he did that like 7 days a week? He didn't have a day off?
And so it depends on where you're at. If you were in some urban centers, rural or industrial areas, especially if you had a large family of 5 or more, you were working 6 days a week. You weren't going to basketball games. You weren't going to practice. You came home for a shift. Your wife had a meal for you. You got a 2-hour nap. You got back out and you got back to work because you had a lot of mouths to feed.
Like my father worked 7 days straight. He never took a day off.
Mine too.
Damn. My old man at least had the weekends off.
No.
I mean, again, if you had mouths, I mean, you made money any way you could. You had your standard job, you had your OT, you drive the cab. You did what if they offered you that, because especially with the GM and Fords that used to be here in New Jersey, you got time and a half. And if you had, back then you were having 5, 6, 7 kids was not unusual. And if mama was home.
Oh, mom was home and dad was.
Yeah, that's what I said. The mom nurtured the family, took care of the kids and everything. And then the older kids then became, sort of parents also. You got the older siblings, the older girls would then take care of the younger kids as well. So, but dad worked. And so that was like a non-negotiable. I remember watching documentary Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Courtship of Rivals. Magic Johnson's father did a garbage truck at 4 a.m, did that until 8, then went to the GM, the auto plant and worked there. So again, he wasn't going to Magic Johnson's games or any of it, and they had 8 kids in that family. So that was, at least that's the experience that I remember. So when you talked about, kids talking about, oh, well, dad, you never came to my baseball game. You never came. I don't know what that is, because dads just weren't doing it. It's like, and mom made sure that she explained, look, your daddy is providing a roof over our head and food in your belly so that you can do these things. She taught you to respect your dad for the sacrifices that he made so that you can have better, that you don't have to work as hard as him, get your education, get your whatever, so you don't have to do what he did. So a lot of folks back then didn't go around hating their dads because, oh, you were never there. They understood. But now it's like, if I'm not at every practice or whatever, oh, you're neglecting your kids. I never related to that. And I don't know, quite frankly, where that came from. That was some 80s Oprah stuff or whatever that said that you had to be all up in your kids' lives as a father. It's like, no, fathers went out, you hunted, or you did whatever. You went sometimes out of the state. You worked the pipeline or whatever. You were gone for weeks, if not months, and you sent the money home. But when you came home, it was like daddy, 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 because the mom made sure that they still have reverence for dad, and that dad was, when they saw dad, it was special, and they hated to see him leave, but everybody understood.
You know what else I found out too, Mr. Bennett? If you look back on time, before we start moving to the cities and the dads went off to work by themselves, remember on farms, kids used to go with the dad to do farm work.
Dad, yeah.
So that way he could still spend time with his kids and, help them work. That's the main reason why we had large families, to help out on the farms or whatever. But as soon as we moved into the cities, what happened was those dads were doing jobs that kids weren't allowed to do. So now they're at home with their mother, getting that type of nurturing, but not still getting the nurturing from their father. So that goes back to what we're talking about earlier, man, making sure that we make sure our finances and our families are in a priority. You know what I mean? Do we need 5 or 6 cars? Do we need, a huge house? You know what I'm saying? That type of thing.
Yeah.
Those are the types of economic pressures that are put on men that we never talk about, because a man is supposed to work. You see what I'm saying? And that also leaves a hole somewhere else. And I think that is a factor nobody ever talks about in these conversations.
Yeah. I think we played a video recently where I think the lady, she was talking about how much money does it take for you guys to live, and she was like, oh, 30,000.
It don't take much.
It doesn't. That's why there was some stats. In fact, I was just looking at it recently. It said places live. If you're in this country, you need 300,000 to live in this place, or 400,000 live here. I'm like, for what? I mean, that's lifestyle decisions.
Absolutely.
But that's
here's
not.
The thing. How many men are going to sit down with their wives and discuss lifestyle? She's going to say, "I want," because she has the purchasing power, and most guys already know what they want from their wife, and if they don't get it, as you say, it's going to be a problem. So you better go pick up another job and make sure you bring that money home. You see what I'm saying? And then what they say, no money, no honey. That type of pressure.
Ain't nothing going on but the rent.
Ain't nothing going on but the rent, baby. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, the minute, something go wrong with the kids, she always like, Charles, get in here and talk to these kids. They getting on my nerves. They unruly. You know what I mean? That type of thing. But hey, if the dad had more time with him, he could, put in the work that needs to be put in. So it's a balancing act. And I think that's a conversation for the parents, which goes back to what I said earlier. Start with the parents. Yeah. What's going to be the priority?
Yeah. And I can't wait to get on some panels and call some people some hookers. You just buying your wife. What the hell? Or I've been renting or leasing or whatever you tell. I can't wait. Wait till Hamp's next panel. I'm going off.
I'm actually working on a video right now that talks about that. I want to rename it something else, but I kind of like the sound of 20 in the front and 40 in the back. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I'm telling you, you bet.
Listen, I got scripture and everything to back it up, man. And I want to make sure that this is a conversation I need to have, because here's the thing, Mr. Bennett. When I was little, I found out that the world was not what I thought it was. And what was even worse? I found out I wasn't who I thought I was. And based upon my values, I always thought that I valued things in a certain way. And it took me getting off to myself, realizing that the way that I'm going now is not going to be productive in the future. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think what happens is when people don't look at themselves internally and don't see their own personal flaws, they are going to perpetuate that. And what happens is we make that wrong way the standard. And since nobody bucks against it, then what happens is it becomes normalized. And that's how we have societal breakdown slowly over time. But I'm gonna talk about that later on, y'all. So y'all,
all right, for sure.
Just hold on. I'm working on it, man.
All
I'm
right.
doing a mind map on it right now. Once I map it out, and you'll see, you're gonna be like, I'll be doggone.
All right.
The things that we thought were right were completely wrong.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Grooming, any final thoughts as we close out the show? This has been terrific. It went a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I thought I'd be taking incoming all night, but this has been a very fruitful conversation tonight.
I'm going to start with the same thing I said to the beginning of the show. Education, and say hello to my little friend here.
All right. Well, I may surprise you one day with that the picture from the gun range. So I'll let you know. This conversation made me a little bit more open to the potential.
By the way, you can clean this shit
myself.
up later.
What's that?
You're going to drive an hour to clean this shit up.
Clean what up?
My doors, I'm shooting across my fucking office.
Man. Okay. All right.
I'm not an animal.
Yeah.
That means we gotta go.
We do need to try to hook up before the summer's out, but I know your schedule's pretty busy also, so let me know when you may have some time.
Oh yeah, dude, I'll
well, actually, you owe me a trip, so you need to come up here.
Let me talk to the missus when I'm gonna call her when I'm done of this when we're off. So let me talk to her, see what's up with her, so maybe you can meet her and everything, and we'll go from there.
Bet. All right. Well, again, thank you guys once again for joining us on this another edition of the Gray Area. We got through it. I'll say that much. But again, guys, have a great week. And until we see you again, I am Mr. Bennett. He is Grooming Reviews 101, a.k.a. Sparta! A.k.a. the Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Panagiotis. This is the Gray Area. Again, we'll see you next time. Take care. God bless. See you next time.
And Democrat.